Hi, my name is Luna. And the last time I saw my mother alive, it was snowing in Jackson Hole. The kind of snow that doesn't fall gently, it devours everything. Roofs, trees, roads, even the sun. She was lying in the old cedar-framed bed she and Dad built together in '92. The same bed where she read me bedtime stories, where she nursed me through fevers and heartaches. And now, it was her final resting place. She smiled that out. Promise me. I nodded, choking on words I couldn't say. She was slipping, and all I could do was hold her hand and pretend we still had time. Mom died 2 days later. And in some quiet, devastating way, so did the version of my life I thought was forever. My father, Robert Harper. He used to be the strongest man I knew. He built bridges literally. Spent 30 years as a structural engineer overseeing some of the most iconic overpasses in the Rockies. A man of precision, discipline, and strangely tender rituals. He packed my lunch until I was 15. Never missed a school recital. Used to sit with Mom on the porch swing every evening, rain or shine, talking about nothing and everything. After she died, he collapsed in on himself, like one of those abandoned cabins you see on the back roads. Still standing, but just barely. I returned to Denver for work. But my mind stayed in Jackson Hole. The silence of our home, the unopened mail, the garden wilting under early frost. Then, 8 weeks after the funeral, he called me. Someone joined the firm. He said, casually, "Name's Candace." Real sharp. I didn't think much of it. People grieve differently. Maybe Dad needed distraction, companionship. But Candace Monroe wasn't a distraction. She was the storm that followed the snow. The first time I met her was in April. I drove in for Dad's birthday. She opened the door. Candace was striking. Blonde. Fit. A red cashmere sweater clinging too snugly for springtime Wyoming. Her handshake was soft, but her eyes were scanning, measuring. "So, this is Luna," she said with a polished smile. "Your dad talks about you constantly." I nodded. "All good things. I hope." She laughed a little too. Less wood smoke and vanilla, more lavender and artificial citrus. Mom's quilt was gone from the couch. Her framed recipe cards replaced by abstract art prints. Subtle changes. But to me, they screamed. In June, Dad called again. "I know it's fast," he said, "but we're engaged." I stood in the kitchen of my Denver apartment, staring at the wall. "You're what Candace makes me feel alive again. Luna. After your mom, I didn't think I'd ever feel anything. Alive." That word felt like a betrayal. The wedding was small. A Friday afternoon thing at a chapel overlooking Snake River. No music. No real joy. Just vows spoken by a man who looked like he was trying to outrun grief. And a woman who looked like she'd already won. I stood there. The only child. The only tethered to a mother erased too soon. And watched him say I do to someone who never knew her laugh. Her patience. Her fierce loyalty. Candace wore white. Tight. Sleeveless. Inappropriate. Her bouquet cost more than my parents' entire honeymoon. No one cried at the ceremony. But I did. Later. Alone. In my car. Parked outside the house I grew up in. After the wedding, I made a decision. My job had recently approved remote work. My lease in Denver was ending. I told Dad I wanted to come home for a few months to help with the transition. He looked surprised, but not unhappy. That'd be great. Candace has been talking about redecorating, but I'm sure she'll wait till you're settled. She didn't wait. By week 2, the kitchen had been revamped. The spice rack Mom built from driftwood gone, replaced by stainless steel and acrylic. She didn't really cook much with turmeric. Did she? Candace asked me once. Laughing, I gritted my teeth. By week 4, my bedroom was up for discussion. This space could be so much more functional, she said over dinner. A yoga retreat corner. Perhaps Dad looked at his plate. I started sleeping with headphones in, taking long drives to nowhere, visiting my mom's old friend at the bakery just to smell something familiar. The house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by someone trying to unghost everything my mother had ever touched. Candace wasn't building a new life with Dad. She was erasing the one that existed before her. And somehow, he couldn't see it. I wish I could say things got better, but within weeks, it was clear Candace Monroe wasn't settling into our lives, she was redesigning them. Literally and figuratively. She wasn't just hanging new curtains. She was reshaping the narrative. Rewriting the story of a home that once smelled like cinnamon and felt like quiet joy. And my father, Robert Harper, the man who used to correct blueprints in his sleep, was now drifting in a current she completely controlled. Until it bursts. It began with the living room. One Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of furniture scraping across hardwood floors. I stumbled out of bed to find Candace in yoga pants and a silk tank top, dragging my mother's antique coffee table into the hallway. "It just doesn't go with the light in here," she said, brushing hair from her face. "Mid-century modern feels more us." "Us?" I asked. She flashed a smile. "Robert and me." My mother had sanded. I helped stain the corners while she played Fleetwood Mac on cassette. "I can move it to the garage," I said tightly. "It's already on Facebook Marketplace." She replied, like we were talking about a used blender. "Someone's coming by this afternoon." I said nothing. I simply turned and walked to the porch before my voice betrayed me. The next week, I overheard her on the phone, laughing in a sugary tone I had grown to hate. No. She's still here. Yeah. Working remote or whatever. She said. But Robert's getting there. Baby steps. When I stepped into the kitchen, she ended the call mid-sentence and smiled like nothing happened. I didn't smile back. Meals became strained. Dad barely spoke at dinner anymore. He chewed slowly, nodded politely, and let Candace fill the silence with talk of kombucha, Scandinavian design trends, and a gluten reset she read about in a blog post. One night, she served a beet and walnut salad that tasted like dirt and regret. I forced down 3 bites. Dad ate in silence, nodding like a man resigned to whatever this was now. You used to make chili on too much sodium, Candace answered for him. And frankly, red meat is just toxic. But the real shift came the day I walked into what used to be my childhood bedroom and found it empty. The books were gone. The posters. The tiny string lights I'd strung across the headboard before heading to college. In their place was a meditation studio. Himalayan salt lamp. Polished white floor cushions. A wall-length mirror. What happened to my things, I asked. Already knowing. Candace turned from where she was lighting sage. You're still in the guest room. Right. This space had such great energy for mindfulness. I couldn't breathe. This was my room. She shrugged. It's a house. Luna. Rooms evolve. We're not museums. My voice was low but firm. Did you ask Dad before doing this? Candace crossed her arms. We're married. We don't need to ask each other for permission. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway, calling my best friend Jillian. She's taking over everything. I said, tears threatening to spill. My mom's quilts are gone. The pantry's rearranged. And now my room. Luna, Jillian said softly. She's not just redecorating. She's replacing. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles whitened. A few days later, I walked into the garage to grab a flashlight and saw 2 boxes labeled Nancy's stuff stacked near the recycling. Nancy was my mom. Inside photo albums. Handwritten recipes. A VHS of our trip to Yosemite. I picked up one of the albums and flipped through it. There was a picture of Mom holding me in a blue sweater. Both of us laughing. Covered in flour from a failed cookie. Later, Candace noticed. You went through those, she asked. Voice clipped. They weren't trash. I said, they were memories. Candace's smile was razor thin. You can't live in the past forever. Luna. I looked her dead in the eyes. You're right. But I also won't let you erase it. The next blow came wrapped in diamonds. At dinner one night, Candace appeared wearing my mother's engagement ring as a necklace. A gold chain looped through the setting. She called it reimagined vintage. Robert said it was too special to leave in a drawer. She explained, stroking the ring casually. Dad shifted uncomfortably. That's not yours. I said quietly. She left it to Robert. She left it to both of us. Candace sipped her wine. I'm just borrowing it. That night, I took the remaining jewelry of Mom's, the sapphire bracelet, and the pearl earrings, and locked them in a small safe I kept under my bed. But the most terrifying thing wasn't the items disappearing. It was him. My father. Once attentive, sharp, full of dry wit, he now nodded through life like a man halfway underwater. When I mentioned how quiet he'd been lately, he said, "I guess I'm just tired." Tired? No. He was drowning. And I was starting to wonder if I was the only one still holding the life raft. It wasn't just the furniture, or the kitchen, or the photos that vanished. It was the way he changed. Dad Robert Harper used to correct news anchors on civil engineering terms. He once spent 3 weeks designing a custom porch swing just because Mom said she missed the creak of their old one. Now he was distant. Agreeable in a way that felt nothing like him. He didn't argue. He didn't assert. He didn't lead. He just floated. Like a leaf in Candace's current. It got worse that spring. One afternoon, I came home from a coffee run and found a strange man in the living room measuring the fireplace. "Who are you?" I asked. Startled. "Hi there," he said. Friendly enough. "I'm Travis. With Hearth Plus Home Interiors. Candace booked me for the reno consult." "What reno?" She walked in, smiling like this was all normal. "Just exploring options," she said. "This place is charming. But it's stuck in 2002. I'm thinking open concept, get rid of the wall between the living and dining rooms. The house doesn't need gutting." I snapped. "Luna," she said sweetly. "You live in the guest room. This is our home now." That night, I asked Dad point blank, "Are you okay with her making all these changes?" He rubbed his temples. "It's just stuff. Houses evolve. But she's getting rid of everything Mom touched. Doesn't that bother you?" He looked away. "I don't want to fight," he said softly. And that more than anything was the crack in the foundation. My dad had always been a man of principle. A man of standards. But now, he was too exhausted to resist. Or too scared. A week later, I noticed something missing from the entryway. The clock. My mother's grandfather clock, an heirloom passed down from her grandmother, was gone. Just gone. In its place stood a cold, abstract sculpture that looked like it belonged in an airport. I asked Candace where the clock was. "Storage," she said casually. "Didn't go with the new aesthetic." I marched to the garage. Nothing. Checked the basement. Empty. Something didn't sit right. That evening, and there it was, our clock. Listed for sale on an antique dealer's website in Bozeman. I confronted her the next morning. "You lied." She blinked. "Excuse me, you said the clock was in storage." You put it up for sale. She sipped her coffee. I was just assessing value for insurance. Chill. The listing vanished hours later. I didn't chill. I started noticing more. The family albums thinned out. My mother's favorite mixing bowls replaced by sleek ceramic ones from West Elm. One evening, Candace floated the idea of redoing my bedroom entirely. I'm thinking something brighter, she said over quinoa bowls. White walls. Minimalist. A Murphy bed. For guests. Later that night, I crept downstairs and opened the trash bin in the garage. Hidden under newspapers and empty wine bottles were mail envelopes. Credit card statements torn, so made in ATS, but not destroyed. I pieced one back together on the kitchen counter. Candace had opened a store card at a luxury boutique in Salt Lake. Over $8. $0 in charges in 1 week. Handbags. Spa treatments. Designer shoes. Then I found another one. And another. 3 cards. All maxed out. I wasn't snooping anymore. I was investigating. Jillian, my best friend and retired attorney, was the first person I told, she's draining him. I said over the phone, slowly, methodically, you need to document everything. She said, every dollar, every item missing, every time she manipulates him. What's the endgame here, I asked. Financial dependence. Jillian replied, she's isolated. The moment that snapped me out of denial came a few nights later. I walked into the dining room and froze. Candace was wearing them. My mother's sapphire earrings, the ones that matched my eyes, the one she gave me on my college graduation day, the ones Dad said, these belong with you. They look great. Right? She said, flicking one playfully. I couldn't breathe. Toes were my mom's. I said. Robert said I could borrow. Dad nodded. Uncomfortably. It's just for one night. I left the room before I said something I'd regret. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the safe where I'd hidden the rest of Mom's jewelry. I opened it. Everything was still there. For now, I picked up a small velvet pouch with the gold locket inside my mom's, with our family photo in it. I clutched it like a lifeline. Something in me hardened. This wasn't just 2 nights later. I overheard Candace again on the phone. No. It's taking longer than I thought, she whispered. She's still here, and she watches everything. But he's close. A few more months and we'll have what we need. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then she noticed me in the hallway. She smiled. Phone still in hand. Finally got those wedding photos. Our photographer is such a flake. She had no idea. She just made her first mistake. Some battles are fought with shouting matches and slam doors. Mine would be fought with spreadsheets, screenshots, and silence. After hearing that phone call, the one where Candace told someone a few more months, and we'll have what we need, something shifted inside me. Not panic. Not even rage. Strateg. If she wanted to play the long game, I'd make sure I finished it before she did. I started where I was strongest research. I'm a financial consultant by trade. I've vetted billion-dollar portfolios. I've found holes in balance sheets that auditors missed. If I could find discrepancies in offshore trusts, I could uncover Candace Monroe's real story. I began with public records. A simple background check revealed more than I expected. She wasn't born Candace Monroe. Her birth name was Candace Elaine Porter. From there, I discovered two previous married names, Candace Graves and Candace Russo. I followed the trail. One divorce in Nevada. Another in Texas. I dug deeper. Each divorce was marked by financial disputes. One husband filed a restraining order, claiming psychological coercion and financial exploitation. The other cited manipulative behavior and asset concealment. A pattern was forming. I called Jillian. She's a serial operator. I said, same MO older men. Quick marriages. Financial access. Isolation. Jillian let out a low whistle. This isn't just about protecting your dad. This woman's got a history. I need proof that links it to what she's doing now. Jillian paused. Then you need someone who's been through it. That's how I found Madeline Russo, the daughter of Candace's second husband. She lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. I reached out gently, explaining who I was. And within 2 days, we were on a video call. She looked at me through the screen with tired but knowing eyes. Candace, she said bitterly. She married my father when he was 61. She was 40. How long were they together? 3 years. By the end, he'd cashed out half his retirement, sold his house, and hadn't spoken to me or my brother in 18 months. My stomach turned. She told him we were toxic, that we were trying to control him. Sound familiar? I nodded. She convinced him to invest in a luxury home flipping business. It didn't exist. When he finally started asking questions, she accused him of elder abuse and threatened legal action. He was terrified. What happened? She left him, took what was left. He died 6 months later. I blinked, stunned. Did she face any consequences? Madeline shrugged. Nothing. Stuck? She's smart. Operates just under the legal radar. No one ever builds a strong enough case. Until now. I thought, that night, I installed a hidden security camera in my bedroom. I didn't do it to catch her stealing, though part of me suspected she already had. I did it to document every time she crossed a line, every moment she violated my privacy. Because I knew I'd need more than suspicion. It didn't take long. 2 days later, I watched the footage of her walking into my room, rifling through my desk drawer, and photographing a folder labeled banking and legal. She didn't know I had decoys. She was photographing fakes, intentionally placed dummy documents with dates, names, and account info that led nowhere. She thought she was ahead of me. She wasn't. Meanwhile, I started compiling a dossier. It included her credit card spending based on statements retrieved from trash. High-end purchases. Her online consignment profiles, she was reselling luxury items under an alias. Text transcripts she accidentally left visible on her phone. The aliases and patterns from her former marriages. And now, surveillance footage. Each piece was a brick. I was building a wall she wouldn't climb over. One afternoon, while she was out volunteering, I checked the shared desktop in Dad's office. Big mistake for her. She had left open a folder labeled Travel Planning. Inside were scans of real estate documents for a property in Nassau, Bahamas. A condo. Paid in full? The name on the title, Candace Elaine Porter, her original name. I cross-referenced the timeline. The wire transfer matched the same week Dad had made a large investment she vaguely mentioned over dinner. It wasn't an investment. It was an escape plan. I made backups of everything. Loaded it onto a password-protected USB drive. Stored it in a safety deposit box under my name. Linked to a separate LLC I'd quietly set up months ago. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. I was preparing for war. Dad, of course, was still in the dark. He knew something was off, but every time I tried to gently broach the topic, he shut down. She's just trying to help. He'd say, give her a chance. Dad, I asked once, when was the last time you saw your friends? He hesitated. Well, you know how life gets. Or when you last worked on one of your bridge models, no answer. That night, I left a copy of a photo from the safe on his nightstand. It was a picture of Mom and me in the garden. Dirt on our faces. Joy in our eyes. I didn't say a word. But I saw him look at it the next morning. He lingered. By now, Candace had started to sense the shift. I wasn't confrontational, but I wasn't shrinking either. She asked fewer questions. She made more phone calls behind closed doors. She started leaving the house for longer periods. I noticed her laptop password changed. Herr Demina stiffened. She was preparing something. What she didn't know was, so was I. Sometimes people mistake silence for weakness. But silence is just strategy. When you know the storm is coming, and I was almost ready, there's a strange quiet that comes before truth begins to surface. Not a peaceful quiet, but the kind that buzzes just beneath your skin. You know something is shifting. Cracking. Unraveling. And all you can do is watch. And brace yourself. That's where I was now. Candace didn't know it yet. But her empire was built on wet sand, and the tide was rolling in. The next piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected place. While cleaning out the attic part of my quiet plan to reclaim space, I came across a dusty old banker's box wedged behind insulation. The label read simply, "Medical Confidential." Inside were my father's old insurance forms, a few specialist letters, and at the very bottom, a more recent envelope, still sealed. I opened it. It was a letter from Dr. Vance. "Robert, after reviewing your recent tests, I strongly urge you to schedule further evaluations. Early-stage cognitive decline is possible, and we should act preventively." I read the letter twice. Then again, my heartbeat quickened. Cognitive decline. That's why he'd been more forgetful. I didn't confront him, not yet. He didn't even know I found the letter. And I didn't want him to feel shame or fear. That's the last thing someone battling memory loss needs. But I did make an appointment with Dr. Vance and asked for a family consultation. As his daughter, I had the legal right, especially if I had power of attorney, which, thankfully, Mom had ensured years ago in her trust. That power might be what saves him. Meanwhile, Candace had been growing restless. Or maybe paranoid. She stopped making casual conversation. Her smiles felt tighter, rehearsed, and she started asking Dad loaded questions in front of me. "Don't you think Luna's been a little overbearing lately? Or shouldn't we set some boundaries? This isn't her house anymore." He rarely answered. "Just, Robert, have you thought about updating your will?" He blinked. "My will, yes. Honey, it's out of date. Everything still references Diane." She chuckled. "That was a lifetime ago." I held my breath. He nodded slowly. "Maybe. I don't know." She looked up at me, then back at him. "Just something to think about." That night, I called Jillian. She's pushing for the will, probably wants to get power of attorney next. "Then you need to act now." She said, "You said you have documentation, footage, financials, all of it. And now?" "Medical context. Early stage decline. You ready to go public with it?" I paused. Was I? This wasn't just about exposing her. It was about protecting my father. His dignity. His memory. His peace. But if I waited too long, Candace would bleed him dry and take everything with her when she vanished. "Yes." I said, "I'm ready." We began with a legal intervention. Jillian helped me file an emergency petition for guardianship review, citing concerns of elder financial abuse and medical vulnerability. It was filed quietly, discreetly through the family court in Teton County. I requested that no notification be sent to Candace until the initial hearing date, but I knew I couldn't keep it hidden for long. So, I took the next step. I reached out to the others. Remember Madeline Russo, Candace's previous stepdaughter? She introduced me to Casey Graves, the son of Candace's first husband. Casey was bitter, angry, but he still had records, emails, voicemails. Even bank logs where Candace managed his father's finances before their abrupt divorce and disappearance. He shared everything. In fact, he even had a voice recording Candace threatening legal retaliation if her name ever came up publicly. I've kept, but if you're going after her, I want in. I compiled it all. Created a timeline. A history. 2009, Candace marries William Graves in Reno. 2012, divorce finalized. Claims abuse. Walks away with $200 K and a condo. 2014, marries Antonio Russo in Houston. 2017 leave. She was a predator in pearls. The final blow came unexpectedly. A neighbor, Mrs. Langford, a retired teacher who walked her dog every morning past our house, stopped me on the porch. I saw something the other day, she said quietly. Thought you should know. What is it? She leaned in. I saw Candace meeting a man in a black Escalade. Tall. Maybe early 40s. They hugged. She handed him an envelope. When Wednesday, around St. A.M., I checked the footage. There it was. Zoomed in. Clear as daylight. Candace. Envelope. Hug. Whispered words. Then she walked away smiling. This wasn't just about draining my father. It was about what came next. I sat on my bed that night, the USB drive in one hand, my mother's locket in the other. I whispered, I'm doing this for both of you. Tomorrow, I would present everything to the court. The story was no longer just mine. It was the story of how one man's legacy was nearly stolen, and how his daughter, quiet, stubborn, relentless, stood at the edge of ruin and pushed back. The night before the hearing, I stood outside my childhood home, staring at the porch light flickering in the wind. For years, that light had meant safety, warmth, Mom's voice calling me in for dinner, Dad humming as he worked on his model trains. But now that same light felt like a warning, because tomorrow, everything would change. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, we walked into the Teton County Family Courthouse, me, Jillian, and my father. His steps were slower now, his eyes softer. Like he was caught between two worlds, the one he remembered and the one slipping away. Candace was already there, wearing navy blue. Conservative. Calculated. Her lawyer, a slick man with a cufflink obsession, stood beside her like a corporate bodyguard. She looked at me once. Just once. And I swear. The judge, a firm but fair woman named Honorable Linda Marks, called the session to order. This is a guardianship review hearing. She began. Filed by Luna Harper in relation to concerns of elder financial exploitation. I took a deep breath. It was time. I stood and began. Your Honor. My name is Luna Harper. My father, Robert Harper, is 68 years old. 6 months ago, he married Candace Monroe, who, I will demonstrate, is not who she claims to be. Candace shifted in her seat. I continued, laying out the timeline. The sudden marriage. The secrecy. The isolation. The forgotten friends. The liquidated investments. The wire transfer to the Bahamas. Then I introduced the pattern, her former identities, her previous marriages, and the testimonies of Madeline Rousseau and Casey Graves. I handed the judge a sealed binder. Inside were screenshots of her real estate purchases. Recorded calls from past victims. Surveillance photos of her handing off money to a mysterious man. And a printed transcript of her call saying a few more months, and we'll have what we need. Each piece was a nail in the coffin of her story. Candace's lawyer rose. Your Honor, this is all circumstantial. Miss Monroe has no criminal record. These so-called testimonies come from bitter relatives and past relationships. There is no hard proof of wrongdoing. I stepped forward again. That's not true. There's also this spatted. I played a short video clip. Candace. In my room. Digging through drawers. Taking photos. The judge raised an eyebrow. That's your stepmother, yes. Then, Jillian handed over the medical letter from Dr. Vance. The one Candace had hidden in the attic. The judge read it carefully. Her expression tightening. Has Mr. Harper been evaluated further since this letter? Yes. I replied. Results confirmed early-stage cognitive decline. He's vulnerable. Easily manipulated. And he's entrusted his entire financial future to someone with a documented pattern of financial abuse. The courtroom was quiet now. Except Candace, just a little. A soft, smug chuckle. As if none of it mattered. I loved him. She said suddenly. Loudly. All of this is fantasy. Luna has never accepted me. She's jealous. Bitter. She wants control. Her lawyer tried to hush her. But she was unraveling. She's making this up. That condo was for our retirement. That money was a joint decision. Robert told me himself he didn't want to be tied to Diane's old trust anymore. She turned to my father. Tell them you wanted this? He looked at her. Then at me. Then, at the photo I'd tucked in his pocket that morning, one of Mom and me, gardening. Tears welled in his eyes. I don't remember. He whispered. The courtroom went still. I don't remember signing those checks. I don't remember asking to change my will. I don't remember half of this. He looked at Candace again. But I remember how lonely I was, and how you made me feel seen. He wiped his face. I just don't know what's real anymore. The judge nodded slowly. Mr. Harper. Thank you. That was honest. And it tells me everything I need to know. She turned to Candace. Miss Monroe, based on the evidence presented, I'm issuing a temporary freeze on all joint assets and an immediate investigation into financial activity over the past 6 months. In the meantime, guardianship rights for Robert Harper will be This is theft. She's stealing him from me. She just wants his money. The judge's gavel slammed. This hearing is adjourned. As we left the courtroom, Candace's eyes burned into mine. There was no apology. No guilt. Just fury. But she didn't speak a word. Because for the first time, she had lost control. Back in the car, Dad sat quietly. Then he turned to me. Was she ever real? I thought for a moment. No. I said, but you are. And that's all that matters. He reached out, and for the first time in months, he held my hand. It was shaking, but it was his. That night, I stood in the doorway of the house I'd once felt pushed out of. It wasn't safe yet. The battle wasn't completely over, but it was ours again. And tomorrow, we'd begin to rebuild. Together. The morning after the hearing, the house felt different. Not keener. Not louder, just lighter. Like someone had opened a window that had been sealed shut for years and let the truth breathe. Candace was gone. The framed wedding photo that had been on Dad's nightstand. All of it vanished overnight. As if she'd never existed. But we knew better. The shadows she cast still lingered in the corners. Dad didn't say much at first. He wandered the house like a man returning to a place he barely recognized. Every room held memories, some real, some foggy. Others rewritten by the lies he'd been fed. I'd find him staring at bookshelves. Or standing silently in the kitchen. One hand on the counter. As if trying to remember the rhythm of life before everything turned upside down. Was the toaster always there? He asked one morning. No, I said softly. You used to keep it in the pantry because Mom didn't like crumbs on the counter. He smiled. It was small. Faint. But it was the beginning. I didn't rush him. Healing doesn't come with deadlines. And it certainly doesn't come easy to someone whose mind is starting to betray him. Every day was a new negotiation with memory. With grief. With regret. But there was something else too, a quiet strength. Even in confusion. Even in vulnerability. Dad showed up. He tried. He asked questions. He helped me plant tomatoes in the backyard. Even if he forgot the names of half the tools. Maybe a little dimmed. But not broken. And that gave me hope. Meanwhile, I was cleaning up the mess Candace left behind. Bank statements. Legal inquiries. Investigators from the DA's office reaching out about possible fraud charges. Jillian handled most of it. Thankfully, she knew I was emotionally drained. But I still had to walk through the wreckage. Candace had maxed out one of Dad's credit cards. Transferred close to $80. To a shell company under her brother's name who. It turns out, I was the man from the Escalade. The Bahamas condo sold for a loss. The money gone, but thanks to the judge's freeze, we were able to recover the rest before it disappeared. We'd be okay. Not wealthy. Not even comfortable for a while. But okay. One afternoon, I found something in the attic I hadn't noticed before, an old box labeled Diane's Things. My mother's handwriting. Inside were journals.